Hi there. Hope you're all having a good evening and a good weekend. I thought I'd just mention a few suggestions I've been given for further FOIs. I think some of them are they're all really interesting ideas and really good ideas. In no particular order, it's been suggested to me to ask Liverpool Women's Hospital about transfers they made of babies that they knew required continued level 3 care to the Countess of Chester Hospital. Apparently, the nursing manager, I think Karen Rees, said there was these had to be recorded when babies were taken in and given care at that level. So there would be a record there. That's what I've been told. So if there's a way to find that out, and obviously also with regard to Arrow Park, the same way. And a sort of supplementary idea is to ask with regard to babies that were meant to go to either Arrow Park or Liverpool Women's Hospital. I'm not talking about the issue from North Wales now, talking about from other parts of northwest England. There'd been a plan for mum and baby, or the baby, to go to either Arrow Park or Liverpool Women's Hospital, but for some reason the baby had gone to Countess of Chester Hospital instead for care at a level 3 level. So that's really interesting as well. Now, going back a little bit to the North Wales situation, so this is it would be asking further questions of the Betsy Cadwallader University. Sorry, I need a drink quickly. Throat's it's quite dodgy. Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board. So this comes from Jenny Jar 942. Please check out Jenny's wonderful YouTube channel if you haven't already. She's doing fantastic videos, going into real deep dives about all kinds of aspects of the case and taking each baby in turn, as it were, to look into from obviously an incredibly experienced point of view and from a position of knowledge of working in nursing for over 40 years. So Jenny's idea was to suggest sending another FOI to Betsy Cadwallader Health Board to ask how many mums from Wales were transferred to give birth at LWH or Arrow Park to be in that area, so that or actually to perhaps even to give birth at COCH, knowing that a level 3 unit isn't that far away. So possibly all three we could ask about, particularly if there was expected to be a high risk birth. So in other words, there was this pre-awareness that there was a high risk potential here, and advice was given within that or from that health board, or from either the Maylor Hospital or the Glenclwyd Hospital, or whoever was managing the pregnancy in Wales, to say, we think this could be a high risk pregnancy, i.e. could it, twins, that could be one thing, or, potentially other conditions, antiphospholipid syndrome or lupus, something like that. I'm not saying that is the correlation, but just to say it's potential, isn't it? And to find out if if the health board have any information about that. So not so much sending babies across to these units after birth, although it's been questioned actually whether the figures that we've received so far mean babies. Do they mean potentially mothers actually, and might they also incorporate multiple births and therefore be somewhat misleading in terms of this figure of maximum 5. So that's the idea of parents who were given this, or mums that were advised to give birth in England in order that level 3 care would be close and available, if not directly in Harrow Park or LWH, possibly even at Countess of Chester Hospital, knowing that it would be a short transfer away to a level 3 unit. So that's something I could do if they've got those records about that. One can only try. And there's one that just came up. I was just reading the comments this evening. Another one comes up, and it applies also to the information that we've gleaned so far with regard to these figures of equal to or less than 5, because it's not definite, is it? It could be 5, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 2. And it was suggested in the comments, and the account holder of the commenter is at PG-NE4BT. It's a comment that was made in the Strands of Causality video. So that's at PG-NE4BT has made a brilliant suggestion, which I'll try, and is to reframe the question. This is the suggestion made by the commenter. Reframe the question to the Welsh Health Board and say, can you give me the total number of babies that were transferred to all 3 of those potential hospitals or actual hospitals, Arrow Park, LWH and COCH. So, and if therefore the total figure is above 5, then we could actually end up being able to work out what the actual figure is. In other words, if they say 10, then we know that it was 5 to LWH and it was 5 to COCH. If they say 8, well, then we know it's a maximum of 5 for one and 3 for the other, but it could be 4 for each. So we'd get closer. We'd get potentially closer. And if they said 10 babies were transferred, then we would get as close as you can get, because that would necessarily be 5 to each, the max, 5 to each hospital, LWH and COCH. That's how would be how it was split. So hopefully they'll answer that question if it takes it out of their sort of protective priority, not to say what the number is between 1 and 5. If you get the total and it's more than 5, then they can say that, hopefully. So that's a fantastic idea. All these are suggestions by other commenters and from other sources, and great from Jenny and from PGNE4BT. And I was just thinking about something else, and it kind of led on from Jenny's suggestion, really, about transfers of mums with that feel that their births might be risky. There might be a risky. So that's kind of like the idea of a formal transfer. So it's been worked out in advance that that's going to happen, and therefore hopefully the health board will have some kind of record of that being a pre-arrangement. This is where you're going to give birth because you'll have access if you need it, to a level 3 unit. So as an extension of that, I thought another, I don't know if this is the correct way to say it, but another unknown known. Well, I don't know if it is a known, but it's certainly something. There is a figure out there for it, if one could only ascertain it. And it comes from this question: is leaving aside mums who were medically advised, if there were any, to give birth, to have their babies in COCH, LWH, or Arrow Park because of the downgrading of Maylor Hospital and Glenclwyd Hospital. What about mums who did it as a matter of choice? They self-directed themselves to do that. They decided, oh, we've heard that, just in case, we've heard that there isn't this level 3 cover in this geographical area in North Wales anymore at the moment anyway, and there won't be for some time. So we will elect ourselves. We will elect ourselves to give birth in one of the English hospitals. And it is reported in various reports that, as a matter of course, outside of the idea of these downgrades of the Welsh hospitals, a really significant number of babies from mums from Wales were born at COCH. So one figure quoted would be in a newspaper report would be 600 in a year. And not that long ago, I put up an FOI response which gave the split month by month across several years, including the indictment period, several years, showing the split between English and mums from England, mums from Wales, essentially. And the figures for Wales were smaller, but they weren't tiny. And as I say, there have been other reports giving annual figures of up to 600. But in combination with what Jenny's suggesting about organised, advised births in England because of potential high-risk births, maybe because of multiple pregnancies, there might be another section of mums who decided, maybe because they had concern that there might be some risk themselves, even though they hadn't been directed to do that by their own health board or their own hospitals in Wales, but they had self-directed. They were self-directed and made the decision, and however it works out, they contacted the hospitals and say, can we have our pregnancy there? Can we give birth there in COCH? So what is that figure? If that is the case, that's going to, and if some of those are higher risk pregnancies, that's going to add further strain. So it's not just about babies that the Welsh Health Board can tell us that were explicitly transferred. It's also, and this is coming from Jenny's suggestion, it's mums that have decided to give birth in one of these English hospitals. Some may be because of very particular concerns that it's a high-risk birth, but then there could be another contingent that have done that off their own back, as it were, and it's not that there's a record of it. They've just decided to it, and they've kind of effectively joined the significant number of Welsh mums who do give birth, who do have their children in COCH, but it could have increased it because of the awareness of the downgrading of the service in their area in Wales, and had that not been the case, they might have stayed in Wales. So this is another potential contingent. I don't know exactly how we can get that information. But one way you can get it, you can't get any kind of idea of the risk, any increase of risk from it, but I haven't really studied the numbers yet. But as I say in posts, I put up the response of the split between births from mums from England and mums from Wales across several years, including the indictment period. And maybe I need to look at that again and just see if there's any interesting changes. Is there a bit of an uplift? But really, what we're not really looking. Our main focus, I think, is not births from mums from Wales per se. It's high risk births, isn't it? That's what it is, and there we go back to Jenny's question. But also this other potential that's the phrase I was trying to think of. Self-referring mums who feel there might be a risk, and indeed they did have a risky pregnancy, and the babies did need extra care within that Merseyside and Cheshire network, therefore putting more pressure on it. So it's just another stream of potential pressure during this period of time in which this large area of North Wales is considerably affected in respect of babies needing level 3 care and high risk births. I think that's everything I was going to say. Yes, I know, Jenny, and also I saw tonight a comment from Joe as well, from Joe in a comment about what was going on in Arrow Park, the kind of not very complimentary CQC report, the lack of cots, a problem with sepsis there in 2015, as Magic Joe says. Sorry, I should just I'll just check something. Sorry, yes, I just had to check something. It's all technical. No, Wild Magic Joe said, I'm just looking for the actual comment where she says, AI says Arrow Park. This is a comment from Wild Magic Joe on the most recent video. AI says Arrow Park NICU had problems with sepsis in September 2015, and the CQC identified understaffing and poor hygiene, and that's something that Jenny's mentioned as well. And then Jenny's also talked about a lack of cot space. Is the combination of all these factors, is that why no babies were transferred to that level 3 unit, despite them being the designated the unit of the hospital of choice for the babies from the Betis, it's a long phrase, isn't it? Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board. It's just basically that they cover that whole area within which Maylor Hospital and Glenclwyd exist. Glenclwyd is now a level 3 unit. You know, they officially opened in, I think, reopened in September 2018, but they were taking their first level 3 babies again, i.e. having been reverted back up to a level 3 after they've got this new facility there, essentially. From February 2018 they were taking level 3 babies back, but the Maylor Hospital did not revert back to a level 3, and it remained a SCUBU or SCBU. Don't know if there's a way of pronouncing that. SCUBU. Joe goes on to say, Wild Magic Joe goes on to say, the whole network should have been under scrutiny during the investigation. Indeed, I think this is where all this is coming into play. And I know it's not that it's new in the sense that people have been considering it all along, haven't they, and from lots of different angles, but certainly the investigation didn't, and the trial didn't really. And Thirlwall, I don't think Thirlwall has done, as far as I'm aware. What happens with the network, to borrow that thing from Fight Club? It doesn't stay with the network, you know. what happens with network doesn't stay with the network. It affects obviously all the individual parts of it. Somebody said it's put it a lot better than that in a comment that I read about the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. But you affect one part and other parts are affected, obviously. The knock-on effects, as other people have been saying. I'm just wondering if there's any other comments I could look at as well. I'm trying to read my notes I wrote yesterday and I can't understand them. I've written something and I think I've understood what I meant. It's the idea they're not comparing like with like. I think what I meant by that was when they say there's this massive there's this spike that they just quote unquote can't understand, things have changed. The pressures have changed. The totality of the pressures changed in all sorts of ways, and I don't think we're anywhere near understanding the totality of what the changes were within that network, but also allowing for the very particular issues to do with Counties of Chester Hospital itself, the staffing, the Pseudomonas, the lack of senior cover, the understaffing, the cramped conditions, the sewage, all that notwithstanding, there are further issues that some people have described as the perfect storm type of thing happening, but they're happening at a network-wide level, and surely Arrow Park must be part of that. So when I think I put they're not comparing like with like, in other words, if they were comparing it to the year before, the 2 years before, well, all the same, it wasn't the same. There were new and higher level pressures on that network in 2015 and 2016. I think we're coming to realise, aren't we? If perhaps many have realised that already. It's just trying to identify what they all could be, and then adding them all up together, really, to get a sense of the totality of the pressures. I'm not sure we'll ever really get there fully, because we don't know what some of the internal off-the-record agreements were between people like Breary and Dr. Yoxall, and I don't know when Nim Subhudar comes into this in terms of sort of off-the-record policy about which babies go where. It was said to me yesterday that and this goes back to the first suggestion of further FOIs about LWH and Arrow Park sending babies to COCH, and that COCH would need to keep a record of that happening, and that there's this notion of the wanting to keep the skills up idea that we talked about yesterday, or I mentioned, despite not having the senior cover to kind of make that a safe option. Oh, where am I going with that? Sorry, I'll take a pause. Oh yes, I have to remember where I started. So there's this record keeping of that, but it was suggested that I think Karen Rees, well, perhaps I won't use any names, but part of the nursing management subsequent to the unit being downgraded to a level 1 were also having to kind of create a barrier for level 2 babies coming in. In other words, they're saying, well, we're not meant to be taking these level 2 babies. You're kind of doing the same as you were doing before when you were taking level 3 babies into a level 2 unit. And now we're a level 1, and now we've got to kind of not take. We're not meant to be taking loads of babies needing level 2 care, and that there was a method or a way of administering when that happened, why it happened, how long it happened for, and that is hopefully by that means, hopefully, we'll be able to get some data about that, i.e., transfers from within network transfers of knowingly transferring level 3 care babies to COCH. And it was put to me that it's the idea that the consultants thought they were better than they were, that they could handle it, even though they weren't, obviously, that weren't there enough to do so. Sorry, this is going on a bit long, but I'll wrap it up. So it's this idea of this so-called spike. It's multifactorial causes, isn't it, really? Numerous strands, and some of them are more obvious than others, and it's kind of about teasing them out. But some of them are still quite opaque in terms of why babies were kept at COCH, having trouble saying that today, COCH, longer than they ought to have been. And there we've got to go to issues about like transport problems and capacity problems at LWH and Arrow Park. And if Arrow Park wasn't able to take any of these babies from Wales, that's saying something quite serious about its ability to. Was it running at overcapacity itself, or just did it have this paucity, this lack of cots, as Jenny has mentioned? The effect of that on COCH is that they're having babies that otherwise they would not have had in years gone by. And yes, this is the note I've made further. It's the idea that had things been different in 2015, 2016, and the babies been where they might have otherwise been, i.e. in level 3 units, and there was the case of the mum that was supposed to give birth in a London hospital, had all that happened, that would have flattened out, as it were, the mortality figures for COCH. There might have been a slight increase in those years, but not very much had to happen in terms of numbers. I know we're dealing with lives here, and I of course that's a grave matter. It's obvious we all understand that, but in terms of them looking at it, they're looking at it as differentials in figures year on year, aren't they? Not that much would have had to have been different in terms of babies being in level 3 units where they should be, or being transferred earlier when they should have been, and never having gone to COCH at all, or the mums not giving birth at COCH, for that quote unquote spike to have been reduced by 2/3. It wouldn't have taken very much. So the idea that you begin to fabricate this horrific fiction of deliberate harm is it's monstrous, isn't it? It's monstrous. What have I written here? Protecting the network. Yeah, the idea, and as other people have said, what's the kind of interplay between these hospitals and their own individual desire to keep their own stats down, as it were. And we very much come into the area that Sarah Hawkins was talking about with LWH and twin studies. It's extraordinary. I don't think I ever had that question, comparing previous years about how many multiples were being looked after in COCH NNU in previous years as compared to 2015, 2016. But obviously they, as many people have said, obviously the Professor Gill and Sarah Hawkins, that's what they did a lot of discussions over and written about the preponderance of babies on the indictment are from multiple births, aren't they? But anyway, so that's that. Yeah, be interesting to find out more about Subhudar Nim. Nim Subhudar. Nim Subhudar, who's this network lead neonatologist who said some very kind of mollifying things about the consultants vis-a-vis the criticisms that were made by the RCPCH. In other words, it's a kind of a mutual protection organisation in terms of criticism from any other source out with this group of doctors across not just the hospital itself, but across this network. Yeah. But they all know, don't they? They all know. And I'll leave it there because I'm rambling now. Sorry if it's been a bit of a ramble, but I hope not. But one of the reasons I wanted to say it was to say that these suggestions are really good, and hopefully we can glean some further information. It is a bit like trying to get further pieces of the puzzle. Thanks very much for listening if you have, and have a peaceful night and a good Sunday tomorrow. Bye-bye.